extract from The Adventures of Tom Sawyer by Mark Twain. Saturday morning dawned, and the summer world looked bright and fresh, brimming with life. There was a song in every heart, a cheer in every face, and a spring in every step. The locust trees were in bloom, and the fragrance of the blossoms filled the air. Cardiff Hill was green with vegetation and looked dreamy and inviting. Tom appeared on the sidewalk with a bucket of whitewash and a long-handled brush. He surveyed the fence, and in an instant, joy vanished from his heart, and a deep melancholy settled down upon him. 30 yards of board fence, 9 feet high. Life to him seemed hollow, and existence a huge burden. Sighing, he dipped his brush and passed it along the topmost plank. Repeated the operation. Did it again. Compared the insignificant whitewashed streak with the far-reaching continent of unwhitewashed fence, and sat down on a tree box, discouraged. Jim came skipping out at the gate with a tin pail. He was off to bring water from the town pump. That was a chore Tom hated to do until now, but today he felt otherwise. He offered, "Say, Jim, I'll fetch the water if you'll whitewash some." Jim shook his head and said, "Can't, Tom. Old Mrs. She told me I got to go and get this water and not stop fooling round with anybody. She say she 'spect Ma's Tom going to ask me to whitewash. And so she told me go long and tend to my own business." "Oh, never you mind what she said, Jim. That's the way she always talks. Give me the bucket. I won't be gone only a minute. She won't ever know." "Oh, I doesn't, Ma's Tom." "Jim, I'll give you a marvel. I'll give you a white alley." Jim began to waver. But before Tom could succeed, Jim went flying down the street with his pail, and Tom began to whitewash the fence vigorously. They had spotted Aunt Polly returning from the field with a slipper in her hand and triumph in her eye. But Tom's energy did not last. He began to think of the fun he had planned for this day, and his sorrows multiplied. Soon the village boys would come tripping along on all sorts of delicious expeditions, and they would make a world of fun of him for having to work. The very thought of it burned him like fire. He got out his worldly wealth and examined it. Bits of toys, marbles, and trash, enough to buy an exchange of work. Maybe, but not enough to buy even half an hour of pure freedom. He gave up the idea of trying to buy the boys. However, at this dark and hopeless moment, an inspiration burst upon him. He took up his brush and went back to work. Ben Rogers came into sight presently. The very boy of all boys whose ridicule he had been dreading. Ben's gait was the hop, skip, and jump, proof enough that his heart was light and his anticipations high. He was eating an apple and giving a long, melodious whoop at intervals. He was pretending to be a steamboat, and captain and engine bells all combined. So he had to imagine himself standing on his own hurricane deck, giving the orders and executing them. set her back on the starboard. Ting-a-ling-a-ling, chow, cha-chow, wow, chow. His right hand, meantime, describing stately circles, for it was representing a 40-foot wheel. He tried very hard to get Tom's attention, but Tom went on whitewashing, paid no attention to the steamboat. Ben stared a moment and then said, "Hi. You're up a stump, ain't you?" No answer. Tom surveyed his last touch with the eye of an artist. Then he gave his brush another gentle sweep and surveyed the result as before. Ben ranged up alongside of him. Tom's mouth watered for the apple, but he stuck to his work. Ben said, "Hello, old chap. You got to work, eh?" Tom wheeled suddenly and said, "Why, it's you, Ben. I want noticing. Say I'm going in a swimming, I am. Don't you wish you could? But of course you'd rather work, wouldn't you?" "Course you would." Tom contemplated a bit and said, "What do you call work?" "Why, ain't that work?" Tom resumed his whitewashing and answered carelessly, "Well, maybe it is and maybe it ain't. All I know is it suits Tom Sawyer." "Oh, come now, you don't mean to let on that you like it." The brush continued to move. "Like it? Well, I don't see why I oughtn't to like it. Does a boy get a chance to whitewash a fence every day?" That put the thing in a new light. Ben stopped nibbling his apple. Tom swept his brush daintily back and forth, stepped back to note the effect, added a touch here and there, criticized the effect again. Ben, watching every move and getting more and more interested, more and more absorbed. Presently he said, "Say, Tom, let me whitewash a little." Tom considered, was about to consent, but he altered his mind. No, I reckon it wouldn't hardly do, Ben. You see, Aunt Polly is awful particular about this fence. Right here on the street, you know. But if it was the back fence, I wouldn't mind, and she wouldn't. Yes, she's awful particular about this fence. It's got to be done very careful. I reckon there ain't one boy in 1,000, maybe 2,000, that can do it the way it's got to be done." "No, is that so? Oh, come now, let me just try. Only just a little. I'd let you if you was me, Tom." "Ben, I'd like to. Honest Injun. But, Aunt Polly." "Well, Jim wanted to do it, but she wouldn't let him. Sid wanted to do it, and she wouldn't let Sid. Now, don't you see how I'm fixed? If you was to tackle this fence and anything was to happen to it, I'll be just as careful. Now, let me try. Say, I'll give you the core of my apple." "Well, here." "No, Ben, now don't. I'm afeard." "I'll give you all of it." Tom gave up the brush with reluctance in his face, but alacrity in his heart. And while Ben worked and sweated in the sun, Tom sat in the shade close by, munching his apple and planning the slaughter of more innocents. There was no lack of material. Boys came along every little while. They came to jeer, but remained to whitewash. By the time Ben was tired, Tom had traded the next chance to Billy Fisher for a kite, and then Johnny Miller was bought in for a dead rat and a string to swing it with. And so on, hour after hour. By the middle of the afternoon, Tom was literally rolling in wealth. He had, besides the things before mentioned, 12 marbles, part of a Jew's harp, a piece of blue bottle glass to look through, a spool cannon, a key that wouldn't unlock anything, a fragment of chalk, a glass stopper of a decanter, a tin soldier, a couple of tadpoles, 6 firecrackers, a kitten with only one eye, a brass doorknob, a dog collar, the handle of a knife, 4 pieces of orange peel, and a dilapidated old window sash. He had a nice, good idle time all the while. Plenty of company, and the fence had 3 coats of whitewash on it. If he hadn't run out of whitewash, he would have bankrupted every boy in the village. Tom had discovered a great law of human action without knowing it, namely, that in order to make a man or a boy covet a thing, it is only necessary to make the thing difficult to attain. That work consists of whatever a body is obliged to do, and that play consists of whatever a body is not obliged to do.